When you have these moments of like, I don't know if I can carry on doing this because it's killing me, and it's like maybe I should just quit. Like, should I just quit? And then what stops you is like the emotional attachment you have to two people that have literally made music since they were practically born, and I don't think I could do anything else.
Yes.
Welcome to Making Conversation with me, Grant Brydon, a podcast about music, creativity and careers. For this series, I've sat down with a range of artists and creative professionals in order to learn about how their unique experiences and perspectives can help us in our own creative and business practices. For this episode, I spoke to Diva, Jeffery and Alex Headford of musician duo Jadu Heart. Last year, they released their debut album Melt Away, and we sat down to discuss their unorthodox origin story, the expansive lo-fi mythology they've created around their music, and how that evolves as they grow as artists. We also got into the anxiety that comes with writing and releasing music, and what ultimately drives them to overcome the pressure. What are your first experiences with hearing music that you felt sort of affected by in some way?
I think it's kind of weird because you don't really have many memories when you're really young. But like, I used to listen to this CD. It's so random. It's like show songs from like really old like 20s movies called Wonderland or something. I used to listen to that every night, and then obviously I grew out of that. And the first time I remember like feeling really like a strong emotion for music is when I found that CD again when I was like 9 or 10, and I put it on, and it was like the first time I'd really experienced nostalgia because I was like
the memory of
because I was like 10, and you're not really old enough to have nostalgic thoughts when you're like that young because you've only been alive for like 5 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was pretty crazy, and I was like, what the hell is this feeling? Like I feel like I know. It just took me back completely.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the first time I've ever had like a strong emotional connection with like music. It wasn't particularly like a like amazing piece of music. It was just like the fact that it was so nostalgic.
Yeah,
and
like
it
your
meant a
kind of
lot.
memory was attached to
Exactly.
some sort of sound, I guess.
Yeah.
Mine was actually an important piece of music.
Yeah.
It was Barbie Girl. Swear down, like my earliest memory of music is sat on my mum's bed, just like learning all the lyrics to Barbie Girl, like blasting it out, thinking it was sick, and that's honest to God.
Must
True.
have been about 15 then.
No, I don't know. I think it's cool that it's like it happened at the turn of like that century as well, and it's like the future's all about plastic, and do you know what I mean? But yeah, that is true. It was just a catchy ass tune, isn't it?
It's a bit
It's
of a
really
banger.
good. It is a huge banger.
What music was being played around the house?
There's a lot of jazz, just a lot of that. And my dad was obsessed with Prince and Queen, so that was like the staple of my household. Like it was always Queen or Prince or just like jazz pretty much. And then my mum, because my parents are quite young, like they were about 23, and so my mum was like really into garage, because she obviously was actually going to like garage nights like when it was actually in people's garages, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So when I was born, my grandma would kind of look after me, and she'd go out to these garage nights. So she loves like garage and R&B, a lot of Caribbean music, 'cause that's where my grandma's from. So yeah, that was quite a mixture, but I definitely didn't have what I eventually became interested in, like became obsessed with, which was like more like indie rock. Like that was, I never had much kind of rock and that kind of stuff in my house, which is probably why I like veered towards it when I finally like discovered it, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like this is cool.
Oh, my parents were listening to like Nick Drake, kind of. They're a bit older, so like the Doors and the Beatles and stuff like that. And my dad was like really into like African music. He has a lot of like a huge African record collection that we keep in France, which is kind of where, because I run like a little reissue label with my brother for like Afrobeat records and stuff like that from the 80s, and that's kind of where that kind of started from, I guess. But yeah, there was just so much stuff, and I think it's weird, like my dad doesn't really listen to music anymore. He just like in his van, he's got no like sound system, and it just doesn't work for like the last 5 years. I've always been like, what do you do? And he's just like, I just sit here and just like chill and like think about stuff for like 5 hours. He has to drive all over the country. But so that kind of stopped. But I guess they just listened to stuff that they used to grow up listening to.
Yeah.
In their early days, yeah.
And I guess you kind of touched on it with indie, but like, what was the first music that you felt like was yours, or like that you were connecting to and bringing into the house?
Yeah, it was indie. Definitely. That was like the days, wasn't it? Like Arctic Monkeys.
God, Arctic Monkeys is what
Foals.
Like, did it for me. When I discovered them, I was like, I felt like I'd found like a new world. I was like,
and then a little bit later on, by the time, because that was like all the stuff that my brother was listening to, or like the slightly older kids were listening to. And then by the time that we were like the older kids, when we were like 16 or whatever, or 15, that was like the SoundCloud electronic phase and Subtract and all of those bands. Well, I guess they're not bands, all those artists and stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think was the first music that you heard that made you want to go from being someone listening to music, being a fan, to actually being a creator of music or a participant?
I've always done it, and like originally it was probably like Jack Johnson or something when I was like 6 or 7 or whatever.
Big ups Jack Johnson.
Oh, is that Lola tune actually? But then like when I was actually like, this is cool, I want to do this, it was probably Foals. Like we're all well into Foals, like and that kind of math rock thing. It was huge up north, math rock. Like every band was like a math rock band when we were like 13 or 14 or whatever. So that was what we were trying to do.
I always have done it as well, since before I can remember, apparently, according to my parents.
Right.
My grandma said that she had a guitar like in the corner of the room, and I just used to just play it, but like quite well for like a 3-year-old, like actually be able to repeat like motifs and stuff. But the first song I ever wrote was, I think I was 7, and it was like a jazz piece.
Oh,
so
wow.
Because I played the clarinet,
right?
So I'd got my dad's friend Roy helped me like set up a little recording thing, and I recorded like a clarinet, like 3. I'd written like notated like 3 parts for the clarinet, and they were doing like different parts, and it was actually really good. I don't think it. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like genius level good. It was like,
I still can't write.
She's all right.
Notes, so that's
yeah.
genius.
I mean, I can't anymore. Maybe I was a genius, definitely not anymore. But yeah, and then actually the first song I heard that made me like want to be in a band or kind of get more into that was Seaside by the Kooks. And it's such a joke because it's so like, I think it's a lot bigger than people kind of think. I think it's actually a staple in a lot of people's.
The Kooks are massive, aren't
yeah,
they?
I know, but that specific song,
like,
because it's like it's a less than 2-minute song. It's less than 2 minutes, and it's like not even really like a full song really, but it's like it's huge. Like I love it.
It's interesting looking at all that music now though, because it's like, because I think like 4 years ago, if you were to ask me this question, I would never have mentioned like Jack Johnson. She probably wouldn't have said the Kooks.
Yeah.
All this stuff is like stuff that we're like, oh no, it's not that cool. Do you know what I mean? We're not that into it because we don't like go around listening to it now.
Yeah.
But I think it's gotten to the point now where like some of those tracks were they like 15 years old? Some of it, like some of it's well old, and like it's coming around to be able to look back at that music and be like, oh wow, like that was what we were into. Like I could pretend that I was listening to Aphex Twin when I was like 10, but it wouldn't be true, you know. It's like
do you think that's more to do with the time, or do you think that's more to do with like you growing and kind of becoming comfortable with the fact that
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think the more you kind of grow up, the more you realize that like you can be influenced from anything, and it doesn't mean that the effect of the music is any better or worse. Like,
and also like the time thing, because it's now old enough to be like nostalgic. That's the thing. Like before it was a little bit too close. Like I was still kind of like, oh God, was I really listening to that? But like now it's like, yeah, I was listening to that. Like who cares? It's like it's long enough ago that I can say something.
I still haven't gotten to the point where like Blink-182 is cool, but like
I actually listened to one of the albums the other day. Yeah, it's still not there. It's not there, but it's getting there.
What so both of you, it was kind of guitar and vocals that you were first.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it's still how we write now. Like,
we both started off writing songs just on the guitars and singing. Yeah.
When did the kind of more electronic elements and stuff come into it then for you both?
For me, that was, so like I was saying, when we were 16, and it kind of turned from bands into like Subtract, like Tonight, like all the kind of, we were going to the Warehouse Project in Manchester, and then suddenly it was like no one was singing or playing the guitar anymore. It was like no one wants to sing. I remember sitting there being like, oh man, songs with lyrics, they're so uncool nowadays. It's like, so it was basically just trying to do that and just trying to make club music like really badly for like a few years, and yeah, that's where the production kind of elements came from. But then like I remember hearing J Paul, and that was like, that's the first time that music's like ever like really, really touched me to a level of like, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to make. So then kind of bringing the songwriting back into the electronic side of it.
I was so kind of just stuck in the kind of singing and playing guitar thing. Not stuck in it, but I was so obsessed. That's just what I did. And I wanted to start a band, but I just didn't have anyone around me that wanted to start a band. Do you know what I mean? I was kind of the only one. I was in a school that was very academic based. It's also a girls' school. And like I didn't really have anyone around me that would kind of make a band with me. So then I just started producing instead. So I just made my own band basically on the computer, pretty much. And that's how it started. I remember really listening to a lot of like Flying Lotus. I think that's what kind of made me, when I heard that for the first time, I had a friend called Max who showed it to me. And I was like, this is really, because it's very jazzy as well. I had that link. Yeah. So it was like super, like that touched me. Something clicked and I kind of went more kind of electronic. I kind of veered from the singing thing as well.
Yeah.
And just stopped singing.
You used to, I remember when we first met, she had like some, because you were using a lot of like, you're still using GarageBand for some stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And she had like these crazy like compositions on GarageBand that were just like about like how her room was messy or some shit. It was crazy. And that was when I was like, yo, we got to start a band. Let's start a band with each other. Let's do that.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, if you want
to. What were you using to make like dance music on?
It was I guess originally when we were in high school it was GarageBand, and then it was Logic, and then it was Ableton. And I don't think any is better than the other. I think I'd like to think that Pro Tools is like the one that's like for all the G's, but I couldn't use it. I don't know how to use it.
No, it's literally like an alien project.
And I've completely forgotten how to use Logic. Like someone pulled it up the other day, and that's what I'd like learn how to use DAWs on or whatever, and I just couldn't do it. So now I just use Ableton. But
yeah, I started on Logic
we don't really do it properly though. We don't use the software properly. I remember
we use it for recording. We record stuff and then mess around with that using effects, and kind of we just re-sample ourselves basically constantly. Like there's guitar
no
parts
or anything.
There's synths. I think someone once asked us like, what's that synth in that song? And I was like, that's a guitar part that we recorded and just messed around with for about 2 months. Now it sounds like a synth. Like I don't know.
The thing about Ableton, it has that it has the kind of the audio manipulation thing just at the bottom of it, which you can just like do like time stretch so easily and do all that stuff like well easily. So that kind of ended up being the basis for like our whole thing, because we were just like messing with the audio, like stretching it and kind of manipulating.
We were also learning how to use it. So it was kind of like we were just, having fun with what we knew how to do. Which is,
I think that's it's a good way to like end up accidentally making something that's pretty of its own style or whatever.
Yeah. So you met at uni, right?
Yeah.
You heard the GarageBand compositions and stuff and wanted to start a band. So this is pre Jadu Heart music. What was that period like?
So after me and Diva had met, we were like, we'll make some music together. And I went round to her like dad's house, and the first tune that we made was Harry Bumpton's Iced Tea, which is on the record. And I think that was the first time I'd ever made a tune and like produced a tune with someone, and it had actually been like, yo, this is a tune. Like this isn't just like some sort of weird like singing over. Do you know what I mean? It actually felt like we'd made a song. And it was like, shit, we should work together more. And then I don't think we did for like a while.
Yeah. Well, so basically when we made Harry Bumpton's, we made 5 tunes in one day, and Harry Bumpton's was one of them. And it was the first one. And then the others, we still have somewhere. We should find them. They're quite good. There was one about a stone rolling to the bottom of the sea. I don't know. It was
Stone
good.
on to the bottom of the ocean. So poetic.
And then we, after that, didn't make some stuff for a while. But then the project came up at uni, and we were like, she didn't say you can do it with someone else really, but we just said, can we do it with each other? We've got this idea, we've got this concept about this whole of the universe and whatever. And she was like, yeah, sounds good.
So what was the brief for the project?
It was like a song cycle. That was what it's called. So it just had to be like an EP that showed a cycle of something. So it had a beginning and a middle and an end.
It's kind of
it was quite ambiguous, the whole thing.
Yeah, it was mostly the life cycle of like a bird or a train going from
like North to South America.
Yeah,
like
which
that.
is, I think that was like what it was meant to be, and we just kind of were like,
yo, let's create this universe.
Yeah.
Let's try and write an EP about all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
And then we did, and then she liked it.
So where did your idea that you had, where did that start? Was it after the brief, or was it something that you already kind of...
The original idea for like the concept was like, I was trying to run a night with my mate Ben, and we couldn't find a venue anywhere. And every venue we went to, they were like, nah, you got to put down like $3,000, or like you got to do, and like, because obviously we don't know what we're doing because we're only 18 or whatever. And then Diva was like, oh, my dad knows a place that we could try. And then we called him up, and they were like, yeah, well, you can only run a night here if it's theatre. And we were like, we can kind of make some out of theatre. So we're like, yo, we'll do a night, but we'll just have like the DJs be like these huge monster puppets. And then we kind of went off on this mad tangent where we're like, we were going to run this like experience night thing just so we could run a club night.
It was jokes.
And then it ended up getting way out of hand.
No, but we applied for a grant for it.
Yeah,
and we got to the last two. Like, they were about to give us like 10 grand.
Yeah, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
Like, what? I managed to somehow write this application, like to make it sound like we knew what we were doing. Like, I must have done it quite well, because like they're about to give us this money. Like, I'm so glad they didn't.
Yeah,
like, what on earth?
Because we would have been like, shit, what are we doing? Because the idea was so stupid. Like all this stuff of building these big puppets and creating it, so it was like this. I mean, it would have been pretty cool.
Sick. It's not stupid. It would have been cool.
But I just don't think we would have been able to do it. And then but the only reason we were doing it is just so we could have a venue to play some records.
But when we were making this idea about these big puppets, obviously we were like, okay, but what are these big puppets?
Yeah.
So they had this whole story behind them about how they would like
some ancient story or whatever.
Had been like two people who'd gone into like a temple and got cursed into these huge monsters, whatever. So we already had that.
And that was the thing, wasn't it? There were these two monsters who had been cursed, and the only way that like they could come back into society is by playing like banging DJ sets. That was it. It was like, oh, these guys are ugly and they're monsters and they're weird, but we love them because they play like fucking some fat trap bangers and stuff. It was so funny.
Oh man, it was
and so
weird.
That was what that came from. And then we were like, shit, we've done all this work, we've got all the artwork, we've done all the designs and the concept, and then this thing came up like the year after in uni, and we were like, oh shit, let's just kind of take that and use it for that. Yeah, so that's where it came from.
It's really jokes. I forgot about that.
So with this kind of element, is like, was theatre and stuff like that, was that something that you were already interested in, or fiction writing even?
No,
not really.
It's we've always been super into kind of not theatre but fantasy, escapism, or any of that stuff.
It's more like the weirder sides of those kind of films, like Dark Crystal. I guess they've just made that new Netflix thing, and like Labyrinth, and like all the kind of Jim Henson puppet, all that kind of stuff that you see when you're younger. That's kind of like just pretty weird. It's kind of creepy, and it's kind of got this element of like art to it, even though it's just like a kids movie or whatever. We've kind of been into that stuff.
I think it's more like the art side of it than like theatre.
Yeah, definitely.
Both our parents,
I hate theatre. Which is
I
so
have
funny.
to drag him to the theatre
because we hear people talk about it, don't we? And they're like, oh, they're super theatrical with everything. And I'm like, fuck, man, that's like not what I wanted.
I'm like, it's great. But both our parents are artists,
right?
So we come from quite a visual background and all this.
Totally.
So that's definitely, that's where it all comes from, really. And I grew up reading a lot. Specifically like fiction, basically I like to escape from this world, because it's not great. And like, and I think we both did at that point anyway. We were trying to escape from whatever it was. And yeah, that's where it came from, really.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, like, how do you go about, because you've created this like whole world around these two characters, which is pretty ambitious. I feel like a lot of musicians would just be like, "No, we'll just find a different venue."
Yeah.
But like, what? But what do you think led you to just be like, "No, let's pursue this idea and let's."
Honestly, I think it just comes down to personality. Like, we somehow both have personalities that we just push everything to like the limit of what it could be in terms of that. Like, we've never really been like, we've never tried to take the easy way out of anything. We're honestly to the point where can be detriment sometimes, because we're just trying to, our standards are so high, and our ideas are so huge, and we want to do them, and we're going to do them, and that's it. Like, there's no like, but it's too expensive or it's too hard. Like, fuck it, we'll just make it ourselves.
Yeah,
like,
we'll just figure out a different way to do it.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, in reality, when we first came up with these concepts, it was like, oh, it'd be sick if it was just shown in like animation or like, do you know what I mean? There's so much stuff that you think about with concept worlds like this. And then we were just like, well, obviously we can't do that. So we had to just kind of write it out and make the artwork for the vinyls connected with all that. And you kind of feel like you get it across. It's hard. Yeah.
It's really hard
to
like,
do. And the thing is, we didn't want it to be this, like we said earlier, like theatrical. Like, we didn't want it, I mean, it is a bit, but we didn't want it to be like totally cheesy. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a fine line between like something being like super cheesy and something being like, oh, this is actually a pretty cool idea, and it's pretty like interesting and fun to get involved in. And
a lot of artists have, there's like Bjork.
She does it a lot, doesn't she?
FKA Twigs now, who I think is inspired by Bjork a lot, that have walked the line basically between cheesy or really cool. And like, you can't go too far. Like, I won't name them, but there are some artists that have taken that too far, in my opinion, to the other side, where it's almost like you become like a caricature of yourself, and it's like this weird like thing. And I don't know, I think
like Bowie did it really well, didn't he? With Ziggy
Bowie,
and like all
exactly.
Of that. And then you see like those metal bands that are like, they come out and they're like dressed as like a full-on dragon. You're just like, holy shit! Like,
I'm like, oh god, is that
could be amazing? But then it's like, I don't know if that is the vibe that I want to kind of give across.
I actually love to see someone come out dressed as a dragon.
Dude, they do it. You should see like Rammstein and shit like that.
The thing that I think also is interesting about you guys is that all of that stuff that you mentioned is pretty like big budget. But like, how do you create like a convincing concept, but without having a load of money to do it?
Just keep it lo-fi.
Yeah, keep it low. We have like this rule that we've had kind of from the beginning. Just like, work within the means of what you've got. So you can make something arty by filming it on like an old school camera, or like making it lo-fi and not trying to go for like some big budget thing. Because going for a big budget thing and failing it just happens all the time. You see it like all the time in like people's videos and kind of people's output.
If you go for something big budget with a small budget, it's going to turn out very mediocre.
Yeah, but if you use your budget,
if you have like a medium budget and you use it to make something lo-fi but really cool, that usually turns out okay. Because then the idea is everything that you've like put in, you've used the money for, like traveling to a cool place, for example, or hiring a fire suit. I don't know, but then you film it.
We've never done that.
That
would be sick.
Let's do that. Quite a good idea.
There's also like with the second EP, we were like, oh, we want to do like a full visual thing with it. And we're like, oh, how are we going to recreate like this idea of galaxies? Because none of us can animate, and animation's really expensive. So our mate Georgie, who's a film editor and creator, she'd been messing around with like looking at like mold and stuff, like really, really close in. And we figured that it basically looks like space if you like film mold and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we managed to make the whole 20-30 minute video just using that. And I think those graphics are some of the best like graphics you can find. Like, they're so psychedelic and they're so like crazy and out there. And we did it on our kitchen for like 100 quid, I think.
She was doing some crazy stuff. Like, she was like putting highlighter fluid in Marmite and then shining
a UV
light on it, and then using magnets to move it,
like
and then
this
film
liquid
it so it looked
magnetic
like
shit.
planets moving through mental.
It was crazy. Yeah,
but there's just so much weird stuff on the table, like moldy milk and like old crisps, and I don't know.
Yeah, let's film that.
Yeah, we were like,
throw it away.
Me and Alex just sat in the corner like, what is she doing?
Yeah. She's gone nuts, mate.
Yeah,
That's
she's
what we
gone
thought.
crazy.
She's gone crazy.
But yeah, it turned out really, really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just about using your budget,
what you've got, and trying to think within the budget, but as creatively as possible.
A good idea will always go far, as long as you have the means to actually pull it off.
Yeah.
Do you think sometimes like having to stick to sort of a set of circumstances or rules can make the end result, as you say, like more creative, the way that you just described? Because sometimes if you've got a massive budget, you'll just be like, we'll get a billboard out there and we'll do that.
Yeah. I think weirdly enough, like as soon as we started getting a little bit more money, it was kind of like, ooh, we were trying a bit more ambitious things, but things that were ambitious from a technical standpoint and not necessarily a creative standpoint. So they're still amazing videos, if I say so myself. But they're still like really good videos. But I think, you're totally right. Having that limitation means you have to kind of work within the means that you've got and think more creatively.
It really does. It's like, it's the same reason we don't use any plugins or anything, because it's like there's just too much choice. I don't want it. I just want to use what I have. This is why we only work with audio pretty much, and a few bits of hardware, because you don't have like 2,000 piano samples to go through. You just have one piano that sounds kind of shit, and you just put effects on it to make it sound all right in the end. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's otherwise it just gets a bit too much,
and you become an expert in that one thing. Like you become like really good at doing like whatever that one thing is. So. Yeah,
I always compare it to, when you go to a restaurant and there's like a 10-page menu, and you're like, I don't know what I want to eat, and it takes you like an hour to choose. When you go to a restaurant and you've got like one page and it's like black and white, and it's just like 3 starters, 3 main, 3 desserts, and you just choose your option and you go, and it's like perfect. That's how I think about it.
And did you do the I'm a Kid video on like 50 quid? Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, we didn't have any money to do it. And we hadn't been on holiday for like ever. I don't think since we'd met, we'd never been on holiday. So we're like, actually Neo had just come back from Bali, and everyone was going on about how sick Bali was. So we're like, let's go Bali. And we're like, we'll have a holiday, but we'll shoot a video while we do it. So we took a video camera and we got loads of costumes and stuff, and we took them over like on the plane or whatever. And then we shot this video in Bali, but it literally took up the whole holiday. We were up from like 7 till like 10 every day, like trying to find places to shoot this video. It made it sick though, because we went to some crazy places just to try and find areas of Bali where there wasn't any people, because there's people everywhere, like kind of fat, middle-aged, white Australian people, like everywhere. And that was like a bit annoying, but it was cool. It was good.
Alex was hating that.
No, it was fine.
Every time we'd see one, he'd be like,
and they'd be with like really young girls. I'd be like,
it was kind of creepy.
I hate that shit. So we ended up shooting this video, and everywhere we were shooting it, all the locals were just like, what the hell is going on? Like, there's a scene at the end of it where I'm dressed as like a lizard thing, and Diva like stabs me. Oh no, sorry. The lizard guy like shoots me.
Yeah.
And like blood comes out. And like just off camera, you can't see it, but it's like a whole school of about like 30 or 40 school kids that have just like come on like a school trip to like that area. They were like Balinese, and they'd gotten off and they were just watching the whole thing. They'd been there for like half an hour having their lunch, and then like I did that bit and tried to hit the blood out of me and fell over, and they were all like, yeah, and they were like, all clapping like, yeah, like get him. And I was just like, what the hell is going on?
I was like, come on, let's go.
Yeah,
this is so weird.
And they just stood they stood and just like watched us film this whole like thing for like an hour.
But obviously it was because there was only 2 of us, and there's about 7 characters in this video.
Yeah.
So we were having to, there's a bit where the Lizard King shoots Alex, right? So I'm filming Alex dressed as the Lizard King shooting Alex. Then he has to get undressed and get into his other costume, and then pretend to get hit by something. And it's just this crazy, and they were just watching the whole thing like unfold, like, and it took so long.
I love that video though. I honestly thought when we made that video and we cut it, I was like, this is the best video ever. Yeah. I was like, this is gonna win awards and shit. It went out, I got like 5,000 views. I was like, what the hell, man? This is gold. But that was, I guess that's pretty theatrical, isn't it? But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you said that you hate theatre.
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
But this
He doesn't.
whole description.
No, I don't. I guess I don't.
No, he thinks he does, but he doesn't. This
No,
is the
but
thing.
because if that whole thing was shot, but like with a big budget,
right,
like big cameras, like an actual man who was a lizard. I mean, that would be pretty cool as well, actually. But no, but I wouldn't have liked it as much because it's lo-fi and you can tell that it's like the song's about being a kid and it's about kind of lightheartedness. And
I think the element of theatrical that you don't like is the stage element. So when it's like you're coming out on the stage and you're doing something like that, it's a very different. And there's people sitting in an audience like watching you come. That's why you hate musicals and anything like that. Like whereas because it's on camera, it's like it was really inspired by like
Tarantino
films.
We're watching
and stuff,
those. We're like we copied a load of shots from Tarantino films.
You know, you could say that his films are theatrical.
Yeah, totally.
You know, in that way, it's just over the top.
Yeah,
crazy,
totally
gory.
We kind of did jump ahead a bit. So going back to the project, you made your like first EP as part of this project. Did you make the masks and stuff then as well, or?
Yeah, we did. It was like we were saying, we were kind of thinking about how are we going to represent this story physically, and then we were wanting to do the whole anime. You know, we wanted to do a 2D animation really, but that takes years and millions of pounds, not millions, but thousands, you know, to get someone to draw 2D animation for the whole project. So we decided to go for masks. We got Alex's brother to he just drew them. He was just like, what about these? And we were like, yeah. And then got them, our faces molded, and then just got a guy called Bruce, is his name?
Yeah,
to
Bruce,
make them out of resin.
Big Bruce.
And that was the mask. We was literally within a week, we just had these things that just come to, like, we hadn't thought about them very deeply at all. We just had this description.
We just knew they wanted to look like they were made out of crystal. Because that's like a reoccurring theme within all the music. Yeah, so we got them made, and at some point we were looking at them and we like kind of realised that they'd turned into these kind of rabbit creatures, which we didn't mean to do, and it just kind of ended up being like that. And yeah, they look, I guess people say they look a bit like the Donnie Darko rabbit mask, but it was never meant to be like that. But,
and are they still the same masks that you use now?
No, well, originally they were made out of this like really hard resin. For like the first year and a half, we were wearing these on stage, and they're so heavy you couldn't really see, and your neck, you come off and your neck was like mashed. It was so bad.
It was so bad.
It was really bad. And then I went up north to see a mate, and he was like, "Oh, check it out! I bought a 3D printer." And I was like, what? And he was like, I've bought a 3D printer. And I was like, I didn't know you could just buy a 3D printer. And he's like, yeah, I got it from China. It was like 400 quid.
And he's like, it doesn't come with any instructions.
It doesn't come with any instructions, but we figured out how to use it. It came like a USB with like this woman like talking on it. And like none of us could, he couldn't figure it out anyway for ages. So yeah, he was like, oh, send me an object file of the mask. So we got it scanned and we sent him a file. And he just printed one out. And it just instantly looked better. Like, because it was printed in this like iridescent like plastic, and it was just so light, and it was just like, oh, now we can start messing with it and start printing them. And we ordered our own printer from China, and it's just made the whole thing like we were saying before, it's something that you'd need like a team of people to do. Like even like 5 or 6 years ago, we can just do it from our bedroom now, like. And on our own,
the masks have changed since then as well, because it's so easy to well, it's not easy for anyone, but Morgan's really good at using ZBrush, so for him, he can go in and like alter the mask that we send him pictures of ideas that we have, and he can just kind of work on it for a couple of days, and then he'll print one off and send it to us, which is why we've been able to kind of have so many different variations like over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
What
is the story then that you came up with for the Jadu Heart music?
The first EP was like, it's quite a grand concept. So each track on the first 2 EPs represents a chapter in a story. It's
about these 2 kids that live in alternate universe, I guess you could call it. So it's like they're just normal kids that go to school, you know, they have parents, but it's like an alternative universe where magic exists. And they have this god called Jadu, which is where the name comes from. And one day they go into this forest and come across an abandoned temple, and they go in and they touch something they weren't meant to touch, basically, and they get cursed into these huge crystal beasts. And then when they return to their village, like everyone's like terrified of them, and they don't recognize them, so they have to basically flee, and they just run away together and end up just making music because it's the only thing that they can do that people will kind of accept them.
There's just kind of a lot.
It's quite in depth.
But then when it came to this record, which is the next one, we wanted to talk about us a bit more. We wanted the lyrics to represent our thinking and what we're trying to write about at this moment in time as people, not as these characters. So we kind of just had them come into our world and just become part of who we are.
The characters grew up and kind of became more comfortable with themselves at the same time as we grew up a little bit and became comfortable with ourselves. So it kind of just merged into less escapism, us escaping to these characters and having like almost like an alter ego, and became more us. And as we go on, it becomes just more and more us. It's like we were losing the characters, but we're not losing them as in they're moving on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they're still existing somewhere, but we're kind of now doing up more of our own thing. Yeah,
I think it's like a natural progression from where we were. Because when we came up with the concepts, we were at the beginning of uni, and at that age and stuff, it was something that we thought we were really passionate about. And then as we got older, we kind of became more passionate about telling our own story rather than just the story of these characters. So it is kind of becoming more and more
They're definitely interlinked.
Us. Yeah.
I mean, we left uni 3 years ago. I think it's nice to be able to feel okay to be myself. Never really felt like that before. It was very kind of, I felt like that I wasn't interesting enough or whatever. That's why I was kind of using these characters. Right. But now I feel like I'm the most interesting person in the world. No, obviously not.
You are very interesting.
Shut up. I just feel more comfortable in my own skin, basically.
Yeah.
And I just want to write whatever I want to write about. It doesn't have to be a conceptual thing. I mean, it can be still.
I guess that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, although the conceptual side of it gave us a lot to write from, it almost like limited us a lot.
Yeah.
We kind of let go of the limitations that we'd put on it previously, and we're just like, if we want to write a song about something like that, we can just do that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what started to happen with this last record.
Yeah. Like some conceptual albums can be like, if you took a song out of it and listened to it separately, it wouldn't make any sense really.
Yeah. Totally.
Whereas with your music, it almost feels like there's an option. Like someone can get really deep into the world.
Yeah.
But also, you don't have to. I know people who've just got it on their playlist. They're just like one song, and it works.
Yeah.
How did you make sure that your music was kind of in that way?
So that was the thing. From start, we were just like, right, if we're doing a concept album and we're making a concept band, the music has got to stand alone completely as just like an artist. Like, this is like something that if people want to get into it, they can get into it. Because you see that all the time with concept music, and it's like, you go to see a show or whatever at the South Bank Centre, and it's like, it's an AI thing that's been built on this, and it's like that. And then you go and you listen to it, and it's like, yeah, well, the music's pretty shit. And do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, this is such an amazing idea, but it hasn't been executed properly. So it kind of brings everything down. So there's no point. Do you know what I mean? And the original point, as always, for us to just make music. And that was, this other thing was just like an extra thing.
Because you can cut people off and kind of alienate them from it if the music doesn't come first. If you're making it hard for people to get into your music, what's the point? Like, it's gotta be. It always had to be the music first.
Like
and
Gorillaz,
then,
isn't it? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's so conceptual, and that could have. But the music's amazing.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't matter. You never like have second thoughts about what it is and what like. Do I have to be into this? Do I have to be into that? It's just like sick music. Do you know what I mean? That was always the plan from the start.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is good for creativity, but I guess as music continues to get more and more consumed in playlists and in streaming, it's kind of like if your record is something that you literally have to listen to as a whole, it's gonna limit you as well.
Yeah, totally.
For sure. I mean, it's a weird one because obviously the whole playlist culture and all that stuff is a hard thing to swallow as a musician, because it's like the natural thing to want to do is create projects that people listen to from start to finish. You write an album, like you want someone to buy a record, put it on, listen to it start to finish, and it is a little bit heartbreaking to know that there's just like some people just listen to just like one song and completely out of context and everything. But at the same time, that's how music is today, and I'm also guilty of it. Like I listen to a lot of music like that as well, and so you kind of have to adapt to that and really think about the fact that you want every song to be able to be its own song at the same time as well.
Do you think that you usually think in projects then? Because I just thought with Melt Away, for example, you've got like a lot of songs there that kind of feel like they've spanned, like you say, from the start.
Yeah,
all kind of come together, but it does make sense as an album, obviously, as well.
Yeah. I think with Melt Away's like kind of like 4 projects that have been like stuck into one, which wasn't the intent originally. And I don't know whether we're going to continue to do projects like that again. But I think it was just because it was the first like full album we were putting out. We wanted it to, it never felt quite like it was ready. So things were coming from a lot of different time periods.
Basically, it was the first album we put out, and we had a lot of songs. It had taken us a long time. Basically, it was 2.5 years, and we had a lot of songs, and they were, our styles can change quickly. Like over 2.5 years, like we went through a lot of different influences, a lot of different ideas, and we just wanted to put all of them onto the same album pretty much. The project itself is like a portfolio of the past 2.5 years. So that's kind of like the project for that specific album. But the 2 EPs that we had before were very start to finish their own project, and I think everything that we'll do from now on will be like that again, because we missed that. Like that was one thing, like, even though we love this out, we love Melt Away, like it's our first album, but the one thing that we did miss was having this full idea of the project being coherent as one thing, and we missed being able to kind of just do that and
just let it go. I think that's the thing. We were hanging on with this one for a lot longer, which is great because it ended up writing so many more bangers. You know what I mean? That ended up going on it, but yeah, it's this process of being like, okay, this feels finished and this is ready to go out now. And I think that's something that it takes a while to learn. Probably if it was up to me, we'd still be writing Melt Away now. And I'd be like, no, it's not ready. But you get told by your manager to put it out.
Well, thank God.
Yeah,
we'd probably still be writing our first EP. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have heard anything.
Yeah.
And with Melt Away, do you feel like there's been a change in perception and stuff with the statement of like putting out a full album?
Yeah, I guess that happened since we started writing it, and since it came out. The way the playlisting became, like, it's been a thing for the past like 8 years or whatever. But then in that last like 3 years, it has really become like, this is it now. Like this is music now. This is how it is consumed. So yeah, it definitely did change the way, and I think keeping up with that is important, because when you make something, you just want as many people to listen to it and share it as possible, because you made it and it's great.
The reception's been great though. Like it's crazy how I hadn't really foreseen like how supportive your fans like really are when it comes to like releasing, because we'd only release EPs and stuff, which although they're so important, they're quite small, but this was like the first full thing that we'd put out, and I think people really felt like how much time and how much love and tears and blood and sweat and whatever you want to like we'd put into it, and the reception's been so
we have like a super nice, like intimate fan base with us. Like there's so many people with tattoos. Like I think last week like 4 different people got tattoos alone, right? And there's this couple have just got tattoos, and they've got like my mask on him and Diva's mask on the girl. And crazy. It's crazy. It's just like it's just so cool to have like such a strong little fan base that's there, that's going to support and that's going to come to all the shows.
Do you think EPs and these shorter projects often appeal more to sort of like, I guess, like tastemakers and people who are like really on it looking for new music, whereas an album's a broader statement and introduction? Do you think that's bringing a lot of new people in?
I hope so.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the hope, isn't it? It'd be really rubbish.
I guess it's like, that moment of being like, this is the thing, this is who we are, listen to this. But it's funny because I know us, so no matter how people are going to think that we are now, whatever we put out next, it's going to be like, oh shit, so they sound like this. Like,
oh yeah, I think we're going to be just constantly changing for the rest of our lives. We're very like, I think we'll always have a sound, as in like we'll always sound like us, but we honestly, that's why Melt Away, you know, a lot of the songs sound so different, because it was over a span of like 2.5 years. And I think we need to limit ourselves to writing a project for like six months to a year, because otherwise it just will sound too different. Like we just need to get the project, have the concept, have the idea, whatever, get it out, move on to the next thing. Like that's how we work. Like we move on very quickly. Like we get bored quickly. We want to keep changing, keep experimenting, like keeping it like new. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I just think putting limitations on any sort of creativity is just like, what's the point? Like I obviously get it in some ways, but you know, like that's not for me.
There's like songs that we've made and we're like, doesn't really sound like us, you know, like in inverted commas, and we're like, oh well, fuck it, like who cares, it is us, we made this, it came out of us, like, so it is us. No one can really tell us like what we should and shouldn't sound like.
Do you think also, like, because the way that you're talking about the record now and all of the songs sounding so different, and I guess from your perspective they're from all different eras, and I would agree with you to a point, but do you think that that's also because they're your songs and you're so like close to them? But like to me, because it doesn't seem that crazy that like that all this set of songs came from the same people.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like I think we know that as well. I think
to an extent.
Yeah, to an extent we know that. Like, and it is definitely because we're close to it. 'Cause you listen to like Ariel Pink and stuff, and it's like, if I was to have made those tunes, I would think probably that the spectrum of it is so crazy that like I'd probably be self-conscious about that or something. But that's the other thing, we're not self-conscious about the way it sounds.
Yeah, we're aware of that to an extent, to the point where we have friends that are musicians, and I've heard them say, oh, it's just so different to what I've been doing. And I'm like, dude, it sounds exactly the same. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. It sounds like you. It sounds, yeah, but my voice sounds different. Like, no, it just sounds exactly the same. So I've learned over time that to everyone else, like, it probably just sounds like us. Like, it doesn't sound that different. But to us, because we're so close to it, we know ourselves, and we talk about it so much, it seems like very clear-cut moments in our lives. So I hear like Wonderlife and I think of when we wrote that specific time, what room we were in, what time of year it was, like, and I have that clear memory. Whereas, and
what we're influenced by as well,
and all the stuff that we were listening to at the time. But it is nice to know that it probably sounds like,
well, that's the thing to
style.
Like any other musicians out there, like, it's like, don't freak out about stuff like that, like, because even if it's going through you, if it's going through
if it's coming out of your brain,
the way that you'd put like a little bit extra reverb on some like guitar sound or anything like that, it's gonna have you on it. Do you know what I mean? It's you're stamped on there.
I know obviously with this album as well, you worked with Guy Sigsworth, who did like all this big stuff like Madonna and Britney and Bjork. How was that in keeping with that kind of lo-fi sound but working with this big sort of established producer?
That was crazy for us, because like we'd never had anyone like that kind of hit us up and be like, oh, I want to kind of work with you. And I don't think he really understood how controlling I am in particular, but how controlling we are and how precious we are of how it sounds, especially how precious we are about how things sound where we want them to sound not that good. And I think that was the thing that we were in the studio with him, and he's like a genius. Like I've never actually like talked or like met or worked with a genius, but he's like actually a genius. He can pick out like frequencies of like things that are off, things that are wrong. That I don't understand how he does it.
He's like IQ level genius. Like,
but his sound is known for being really clean, and I guess our sound isn't necessarily. And I think there was a bit of a struggle, because it was like he was just trying to make everything sound amazing, and we're like just kind of like trying to make it sound shit. And I think we managed to strike that balance really well by the end of it. But I think there was some times where I could imagine he was just like probably wanting to tear his hair out.
Well, I think he's very specific about tuning. Specifically, tuning is his thing. If anything's off, he was like, it's like someone's literally like beating the inside of my head with like a mallet. Yeah. And there's just been so many points where we were like, can we just untune that vocal because it just sounds more natural? And he's like, yes, we can do that. And then like you can just see in his eyes, it's like every time it comes up, he's like, oh God, like.
But he was the nicest guy as well, because
so
we'd sit there
nice.
for like days on like one tiny thing, and we'd be like, no, it's not like that. And he was just like, yeah, let's
like
do
the
it.
nicest guy.
He's
He
like the
never
nicest guy,
complained.
he's sickest, yeah. And we learnt so much from him.
But he also did put his specifically on Heron Song and Forgotten Ghost. He had like he put his little stamp on him, because those were his favorite songs, and The Omen was another one of his favorite that he put a stamp on as well. And it was nice to have like, someone who we really respected have an input on the songs, and it was like a really great experience. But it did show us, I think, that we just do need to do everything as we suspected ourselves, because we're so controlling in a way of like, we just need to have artistic
well, either we need to have
it.
artistic control, or we work with someone like him and he's cool with us spending like months on, do you know what I mean,
basically undoing everything he's done.
Which is, it worked really well with him, but it would have taken, like, if we would have done the whole album start to finish with him, I think that would have taken about 10 years. That was sick. Like, to
it was
work
just crazy
with,
to be in
like,
a room
with a pro,
in a room with someone
with a proper,
like him, like, who is just so cool.
If you're out there, guy, let's have some beers, man.
And he loves beers.
He does love beers.
Yeah, we had loads of beers.
A lot of beers.
What do you think that you have taken away from him that you've learned that you might put into other records in the future?
So this is like the thing that we're bringing into the next record, and it's this idea of like, obviously there's lo-fi music, but then you can have lo-fi sounds, but then it be mixed and produced in a hi-fi way, so it works on radio and it works on, like, anyone can kind of listen to it, but it can still hold those elements. And I'd always thought that would be really cool to do, but I never knew how to do it. And by watching the way that him and this studio engineer Brydon would be mixing it, and the kind of the way what they would hold as being important, and how things cut through the mix, and how to compress like certain things, that was kind of what we were focusing on, and recording vocal in a kind of a right way and stuff like that, so it can do what it needs to do for people to be able to understand it.
The main thing I learned from working with Guy is to be bold with decisions. Like, before, I mean, there were some points where there's a solo at the end of Purity that's like, when it comes in, it's just like huge, like it's loud, it's big, like it's perfect. But at the time I was like, it's too loud, like that's way too loud, like when it comes in it's literally gonna like blast someone's ears off. And he's just like, no, it won't, like this needs to be loud, like you can't, if you put it low, if you make it too quiet, it will just seem almost accidental, like it won't seem like you've done it on purpose. And
you can have like a flat song, can't you, accidentally,
you don't want it to be
because
flat.
you don't want it to be like evasive or whatever.
And he was like, you've got to be bold sometimes with decisions, and sometimes you'll be wrong, but like just be bold. And that's something that I've really like.
That goes back to like the Beatles as well.
Yeah.
I started listening to Beatles, it's old music like that, and you realise that like, whoa, like that snare is just like so loud, or like guitar part is just like crazy loud, and the vocals really quiet, and like
the vocals really dry, or like anything,
like crazy,
like,
and I think being bold is that's a good one.
I'm interested in this idea that as you continue progressing, you kind of shed the alter ego, or how that changed. Like, originally, do you think that the alter ego gave you more creative freedom that you wouldn't have had if it was like you and your face and no mask?
Definitely, because what the masks did was take us away from any genre, any kind of association with anything. It wasn't like we were just two people that, you could judge us on the way that we looked or the way that we dressed, and you could group us in a thing like a Luna George, or any, you could just group us however you'd want to group us. And then whatever music we made, if that didn't fit your idea of what we should sound like, it would be like, oh, like, why are you like mixing up the genres? Like, why aren't you making just one? I think the masks and the whole concept really, really opened up this world to anyone that listened to it of, I don't really know what this is, but I like it. I'm just so fond of basically the whole concept and the mask from the beginning, because of that very reason, basically, about it like opening up this world to us and to everyone that was listening to it, and being able to see it for face value rather than thinking too deeply about what it should be.
if at some points the masks or the characters kind of fade out, it doesn't mean that they're never going to fade back in. Do you know what I mean? I think it's like, it's a running thing that's such a massive part of like our creative and musical experience, especially with each other, that it's like, you know, we are those characters.
They just evolve.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just going to evolve constantly.
Yeah.
It's just exciting, really. It would be weird. I mean, not weird, but it'd be so unlike us for us to keep the same thing forever.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We just that's not us.
Yeah.
Like we want to
point?
change all the time. So it's just going to evolve as we evolve, basically.
Especially in the era where you were being the most conceptual, did you ever make songs that you felt like you couldn't put out because it didn't fit the narrative or the characters?
Yeah, at the beginning. Well, Harry Bumpton's,
Yeah.
the reason it's on the album is because we were like, this doesn't fit the concept at first, for the first stuff. And then we were like, when it came to the album, again, that was a perfect scenario of us being like, we've got this great song, why are we not going to put it out? Like, just because there's a concept in the way. And that was like the opposite of what the point of the concept was supposed to be. It was supposed to be liberating.
Yeah.
And as soon as it starts like controlling you, it's just like, no, well, we're going to put it out anyway. Do you know what I mean? And that, I think at first there was a lot of rules that we'd set.
Oh yeah, we had to break a lot of boundaries, basically, that we'd put up ourselves. We'd put all these limitations on it. You know, no one else had told us to do all this stuff. It was us that we were like, no, we can't put that song on because blah, blah, blah. And then we slowly realised, like, well, we can put that song. Like, we can do what we want to do, and it's fine. But there have been a few songs. I think White Fang was one of them that you were like, it doesn't really fit the concept. And we didn't really know whether to put it on or not. And there's been a few, but like all the songs that we ended up putting on were just...
They're
so just like
songs.
They're just songs.
Good songs.
Yeah.
It comes back to that whole thing of the concept not getting in the way of the music. Do you know what I mean? It's like the music's first and then the concept is second.
On the kind of flip side to the question I asked before, like what are the limitations of performing? I guess we talked about the creative freedom that it gives you, but what's the other side of that? Performing with a mask and
it's so sweaty and I can't really see. I have no peripheral. So Diva's one's got like a face cut out of it, but my one's got no peripheral vision. And for guitar, that's crazy because if you're singing and you're playing the guitar, you need to have peripheral vision to be able to see where you're at the frets, because if you cut that off. So I was rehearsing, and the only way I could rehearse was just literally rehearsing with my eyes closed, just to try and train my hands to where it's going. And half the time that works, and half the time you just hear like a ding, and it's like shit. But there's nothing we could do about it at that point.
But that's why I cut the face out of mine. Because I was like, fuck this, I can't see. Like, I've got to get rid. So I just literally cut half the face off mine because I was like, I literally can't see. Like,
I'm sure I'll do that at some point.
Yeah.
And also, like, the sweat in mine, like, converges. It, like, comes down my forehead and down my cheeks, and it goes to the nose, and then it, like, converges in a stream that just dribbles directly into my mouth.
right.
So, like, when I'm trying to sing, there's just, like, this constant stream of, like, sweat and, like, snot going into my mouth. So, yeah, that is a negative thing about wearing a mask on stage.
That's a huge limitation.
That is a big motherfucking limitation right there.
I think a big one as well is like small things, okay, that you wouldn't even think would be a problem, like taking an Instagram photo. Like if you're out, you don't have the mask, can't do it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to carry around the mask everywhere with me. But there's sometimes that, like, I just want to do a story or something and I'm like, can't. But this is like,
let me be free.
Yeah. But this is like not like, this is what I mean. It's very small time stuff. Like, it's not the, you know, I'm not dying when I can't do an Instagram story. It's just like, sometimes if you want to do stuff like that, you're limited because you have to have the mask with you to do that kind of thing. So
do you think that's affected the way that you sort of connect with people? Because I guess now we're all told like artists need to be like visible, they need to be doing all this stuff. But then at the same time, I guess, like you're saying, people are getting the mask tattooed on them. So.
Well, I think that's the weird thing. It's like, yeah, we have the masks, but I don't think people... It seems to have not... That's what I used to be worried about that a lot. I was like, oh, we're wearing a mask. We're kind of... There's a big break in, do you know what I mean, in the connection that we have with the audience. But I think it's kind of weirdly like... I don't think it's changed anything like that. I think a lot of people message us all the time. It's just like, yo, mate, how's it going? All this stuff, like, all the time.
I think we've really tried, you know, we've been super conscious of that from the beginning. Like, we know people want to connect with people. So we've made a huge effort to just be people. You know, we're
yeah.
people
Even though we wear
with
the
masks on.
Yeah.
Like we're super like we reply to loads of messages. We're always like talking some rubbish on some interview. Do you know what I mean? We're just, I think people can hear that we're real.
Yeah.
I think it'd be different if we were like silent and invisible and just didn't do any interviews or didn't do any.
Because it's kind of like the opposite of what Aphex Twin did in a way, because he uses his face for everything. Like his whole thing is his face.
Yeah.
But no one really knows anything about him properly. Like he's a bit of a mystery in himself. And I think that just goes to show that like just because someone can't see your face doesn't mean that they know you, or just because someone can see your face doesn't mean they know you. Do you know what I mean? It's like
and there's been many, like look at MF Doom, like it's not like anyone's like I can't connect to him, man. Like he's fine. Totally true. Like, he's fine. It's about the music, isn't it?
Because you've got this kind of whole like multifaceted vision with all these different things, I wonder, do you do any other creative projects outside of Jadu Heart? You mentioned the reissues label.
Yeah, it's a record label called Sticky Buttons. I'm repping the t-shirt.
Oh.
I got a tattoo as well because I love it so much. Yeah, it's just like a load of mates who are like really into, like my brother's like well into record collecting, like to like a pretty nerdy level where it's a bit like, come on mate, like chill out. It doesn't matter about this rare gatefold from the 60s, like, but it's still cool, and they're like obsessed with it. So I just kind of go and hang out with them and like play them what I'm into, and we put on a few nights in Hackney, and we've done one reissue at the moment. We're working on another couple of releases, but also we've been working on a ballet that we've written that we want to put on next year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of there's so many avenues like within the Jadu stuff, within music, that we do ourselves, like the videos and stuff like that we have so many different artistic interests that we take part in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel lacking in any way creatively.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm struggle to find time to do anything else. Like we're constantly, you know, looking, reading, watching, making everything. So it's like I don't really do much else apart from this, and I love it.
What do you want people to sort of learn from listening to the music or watching the videos, just from Jadu Heart as a whole? What do you want them to like take away from?
I just want them to be like stimulated and kind of slightly weirded out and a bit like tripped out, but also I want people to like enjoy pop music who wouldn't necessarily think that they like pop music.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people think that they don't like pop music, but it's like most of the stuff you listen to is pop music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my goal.
Yeah. I just want them to
Enjoy.
to feel a certain like magic, if you want. Just something that it's you know, that you can tell it's different, and it's like you said, kind of weird and magical and super creative. I just want people to enjoy it. There's no like nothing. There's no deep shit about it. I just want someone to listen to it and just enjoy it, and want to keep listening and want to get to know us and come to our shows and just feel like it's something special, basically.
Yeah, to get involved
and feel how much like love and we've put into it and how into it we are, basically.
What's the most difficult thing that you feel like you've had to overcome throughout this process?
I find it really hard to release music, personally. Diva's is kind of different. But I get like crazy, like I get really anxious and kind of depressed just before it goes out, and I'm like start freaking out, and I'm like, what? Everyone's gonna know, like everyone's gonna. It's like as if someone's gonna hear it one day and just be like, these guys are not real musicians. Like, do you know what I mean? It's so ridiculous. But yeah, releasing music is hard, and like any musician, like I bet Drake probably knows, and I bet like your neighbor who sits in his garage and works on his modular synth every day for like the past 5 years knows it is really, really, really hard to release music, and you do get better at it, but it is still hard.
And like weirdly oppositely, so I'm fine with releasing music. In fact, releasing music is like my favorite time. It's like you have the project and you're finishing it and you're getting all the artwork together and it's going out and it's like you finish something, I'm proud of it, like that's sick. It's actually starting projects that I find the hardest, and like writing, I have like crippling anxiety when it comes to writing, like to the point where I'll be like depressed for like 3 months. I won't leave the house. Like it's really bad. And I haven't really figured out why, but but you get, do you know why?
Better. No, but it's like you get, I think that's the thing, is you don't like figure out why you feel like that. I just write stuff. You just figure out ways to overcome those feelings.
But do you know what it is? It's like I have this intense thing about it, and I'm like, I can't do it. Like I'm struggling. I get really depressed. And then like 6 months later, I've got like 20 tunes, and I'm kind of like, where did these come from?
Yeah.
Like these are good. And then it's like a cycle of, it shows me that, I can do it. It's fine. And then I get to release it, which is great. And then Alex is stressing out, and then I'm fine. So yeah.
What do you think drives you both to want to do it when you have these struggles? Like, what drives you to overcome them?
We count our blessings every day that we can release music anyway. And then the fact that we can release music, people listen to it, is crazy. And then the fact we can release music, people listen to it, and we can do this for a living at this moment in time, is like, that's nuts. It's like no one where I was from ever thought we could do that. Like all grown up, it never seemed like that was a possibility to do. And then I guess at this point it's just like, I don't want to have to go back to the reality of not being able to do that. Do you know what I mean? It seems
when you have these moments, when you have these moments of like, I don't know if I can carry on doing this because it's killing me, and it's like, maybe I should just quit. Like, should I just quit? And then what stops you is like the emotional attachment you have to two people that have literally made music since they were practically born, and I don't think I could do anything else.
Yeah, so
like what else could I do?
Yeah.
I genuinely don't. I cannot see myself doing anything else. Like
while we were making it, I was working in a pub and stuff, and I got fired because I was just like rubbish at it. He took me in the office and was like, have you started thinking about doing something else other than music? And I'm just like, what?
I know. No, he said, I know you're doing your music thing, but isn't it time to think of a plan B?
Yeah, it's like, dude, I've been working in your pub for like 2 months. I'm like a pot wash. Leave me alone.
Yeah, you got fired. You weren't even good at
that. But I think in the end, it is just because we love it.
What are you most proud of about what you've achieved so far?
Just for me, it's the vinyls.
Yeah.
I love holding those records because I'm like, no matter what, like these are like part of the history of music now, even if no one like ever gives a shit. It's like these are physical, they're here. One day someone might find it in like a secondhand shop or whatever. That's like the thing I'm most proud of because they look sick as well. I'm
most proud of like us for doing it. I'm just happy that we're still doing it because it really is that thing of like music like kills me, but it also keeps me alive. Like it's so hard, like you were saying, like how do you keep doing it even if like there's so many these things, like it's so hard. Like I think a lot of all my friends are like, oh, you're so lucky though, you're doing music, like basically every day is like a holiday for you, like you just get to like float around and like write songs and stuff. I'm like, have you ever tried to write a good song? Like just try, like, or just try and like put yourself on the line, release a song and put it out for the world to judge you and like everything you've ever made, like ever. So yeah, I'm happy that we've managed to like stick, basically not quit and actually just like persist and learn to like enjoy it. And I just enjoy it more like every day, basically. Yeah, it's just a bit of fun, isn't it? Well, yeah.
And lastly, what does success look like to you both?
A Highland cow, yeah. In a small holding in like Yorkshire. That's success. Like that's what I want. That's my dream. That's the end goal, to have a couple of Highland cows in a small holding and then know that I've never had to work a day in my life to get there. That's it. Mine's pretty similar, to be honest. Minus the cow. Just having, just like not, just to have that, just have a normal life. Success is for me it's just being happy, and like whatever that is, because I don't know, it's hard to know what actually makes you happy, isn't it? Until you're actually happy and you're like, oh, I'm really happy right now. Like, what is it? Is it the beers? Is it like, I don't know. Like, it's hard to know. Success is the perfect guitar lick.
fuck's sake.
Success is $1 billion.
Success is being okay with yourself. I can't wait to get to the age or point where I'm actually like, I'm me and I don't give a fuck about anyone else, and I'm quite happy with like myself and how I am. My grandma's just got to that stage. Woo! My grandma's sick.
Here we
She's
go.
like, I don't care, they don't like me, I'm cool.
Success
like,
is Diva's grandma. That is it. There we go.
Shout
Mammy.
out. Shout
out to Mammy.
She's great.
Thank you for listening to Making Conversation with Grant Brydon, featuring Jadu Heart. If you like this episode, then please be sure to rate, comment and subscribe wherever you're listening to podcasts. You can find Jadu Heart on socials and listen to Melt Away, available on all streaming services. You can find me on social media at Grant Brydon. Thank you to Kiki, where this episode of Making Conversation was recorded.